let's just discuss the obvious here, meaning my hair, because I got a haircut. Um, and I got curtain bangs, these really long curtain bangs, and I got layers put into my hair. My hair is still pretty long. Um, but the reason why I decided to get a haircut is because the neck pain from having really long hair was actually getting to me. And the other thing is that when you have long hair, you can't exactly put it in a high pony and expect it to stay. It's always falling, or my head is always doing one of these. Oh, because long hair, you have to realize it's a lot of maintenance and you will be dealing with some pain. So I just decided to get a haircut. I knew that I wanted to get a few inches taken off and then get long layers like I have in my hair, but the curtain bag thing was kind of like an impromptu decision. And the second she took those scissors and went like this, I kind of regretted it. But now that it's styled and it looks good, then I like it. I like it a lot. Video I posted, I read A Perfect Vintage by Chelsea Fagan, and that was a romance book that I ended up actually quite liking. And so I decided for this video that I wanted to read more romance novels to see if it's like really my thing. And my brain being crazy decided I'm not just going to read romance novel. I'm going to read dark romance novels. So this could either be a really good idea or this could be a really bad idea. So here are the books that I decided that I wanted to read for this experiment. So the first book that I'm going to read is Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. The second book that I'm going to be reading is Lotus by Jennifer Hartman. And the third book that I'm going to be reading is Born Darkly by Trisha Wolfe. Let me go and read all of these books, and then I'm going to come back and give you my review. I 100% meant to vlog reading these books, but time got away from me, and also I ended up really enjoying all three of these books. I feel like I need to send myself to jail for liking these books, because I give a trigger warning before I get into the review of these books, because what I realized while I was reading these dark romance books is that there is a lot of sexual abuse, rape, kidnapping, physical abuse in dark romance. So if you are going to be triggered by any of these things, I would click away from this video now, because dark romance, as I realized, is very explicit filming location. It's because I go back and forth between two different places that I live and have to kind of do all this traveling for my job. So right now we are at my mother's house doing this vlog. I started off reading Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman, and I gotta say, I really like this book. It's a kidnapping book, like a dark romance kind of trope for this book. So we have our main character Corbell, and then we have Dean, and we have Mandy, and they'd known each other for 15 years, and Dean met Mandy and Cora when they were in high school, I think it is, and Dean had feelings for Cora at first, but then for some reason he started dating Mandy, and they kind of had this like going back and forth of like, oh, I don't really like you, and oh, like they prank each other a lot. And so in the beginning of the book, they're at this bar. I think they're celebrating Mandy's like engagement party, because Dean and Mandy got engaged. Mandy and Dean decide to leave the bar early, and Cora kind of just sticks around. And then Cora, when she's getting ready to leave, she realized that her wallet has gotten stolen, and she can't find or get herself home without her wallet, which is actually, I think, is kind of like a plot hole. I don't know when this book was written, but I feel like even if you lost your wallet, you can still Apple Pay for an Uber. Like, there's no way that like someone's spending your money that fast. I mean, I would like get the Uber, and then once you're at home, like call the credit card companies and just be like, hey, my card's been stolen. Like, there's probably fraud on my card. I don't know. That kind of was like a plot hole for me, but I'm looking past it. So she's calling around different people to see if they can come and pick her up, and she's not getting a hold of anyone, but she was able to get a hold of Dean, and Dean's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna come and pick you up. So there's waiting outside the bar, and she runs into this John Wayne Gacy looking character. And I say that because they mentioned in the book that they live in like the Chicagoland area. I'm not exactly sure, which kind of tracks because I also live in the Chicagoland area, and the Chicago area is kind of like feasting ground for fucked up people, especially serial killers, if you know anything about like Chicago history. So Dean comes and picks her up, and when he's telling her to get in the car, the John Wayne Gacy guy is like, oh, is this your girl? And she's like, no. And so they drive away, and then the serial killer guy runs them off the road and ends up kidnapping both of them and locks them up in a basement. So the serial killer is the matchmaker, where he gets these two couples that don't like each other, are not connected anyway, forces them to fall in love, and then he murders them. Once Dean and Cora are trapped in this basement, they are forced to do a bunch of really fucked up things, and they end up, while they're, trapped in the basement, they end up falling in love with each other, or realizing that they do have feelings for each other that Dean kind of like sparked back in high school, but they never really did anything because they kind of went along with the story of like, oh, we don't like each other, and because Dean is engaged to Mandy. But they eventually do get out or escape from the basement, and they're kind of forced to deal with the trauma that they experienced when they're in the basement, and their feeling for each other that developed. And I will say that this book was a really good representation for I guess like the mental health issues or problems that you would have if you were kind of put in that situation. And both Dean and Mandy do go to therapy. It's not the kind of the case where like, oh, they fell in love with each other and they decided to act upon those feelings right when they get out. It wasn't like, oh, we're two fucked up people, but our love for each other will carry us through. It wasn't very much like that. They kind of went back and forth with like, do we really have these feelings for each other, or was it something that was like put in our heads because we were trapped in the basement for quite a while? And so, like I mentioned before, like Dean is engaged to Mandy, and once he starts realizing that he's having feelings for Cora, he cuts off the engagement with Mandy. He didn't like physically cheat on Mandy. He mostly like emotionally cheated on her because of his developing feelings for Cora. And so once Dean tells Cora that, oh, I like your sister and I are no longer engaged, Cora's just like, take it back, this is all my fault. Like Mandy's distraught, she's upset. But I get that, but there was some points in this book where I just kind of like, so Dean, he came around to his feelings pretty quickly, and he like sought out therapy. I mean, he did have some alcohol abuse issues because of the time he had to be in the basement, but he like worked with a therapist to get over that and really like explore his feelings for Cora. And then Cora she was more hesitant because she's like, Mandy's gonna hate me, my parents are gonna hate me, my family's gonna hate me. And Cora is the most frustrating character, because it's like she knew that she has these feelings for him, and she was like denying it for such a long time. And then I don't know, I really like this book, and I'm shocked that I really like this book. I think it maybe it was because it was like, even though the kidnapping part of it was kind of like you have to suspend your belief for that, but like the fallout of it and how they go about taking care of each other and seeking help, I'm like, that's really mature. Like I mentioned, it was not something where like they're like, our love for each other, like we can fix each other just through our love. No, they actually went to therapy and saw people to help them get through their issues. And I don't know, the one thing that I didn't like about this book is at the end there's this epilogue, and it tells us that Cora and Dean have had a couple kids at this point. And if you look back at my birthday video, I have mentioned that I am just someone that does not like kids. I don't like books with like a kid focus. So I felt like the epilogue of this book was just not needed. Like I got to that part of the book and I was like, kids, really? So, but that's on me. After I read this book, I decided to give this book 5 stars. There really wasn't anything that I didn't like other than the epilogue, but I really like Jennifer. She has like a very mature way of writing, and the spiciness in this book was perfect. So I'm shocked that I like this, because like I said, I don't like romance books, but maybe I need to take that back and send myself to jail, because I like dark romance, or at least this dark romance that I just read by Jennifer Hartman. And so the next book I read was Lotus, also by Jennifer Hartman. It is based off of Oliver and Sydney. They are childhood best friends. They live next to each other. Oliver gets kidnapped as a child, and Sydney has not been able to get over that. She feels like there's a void missing in her life because they were just so close as kids. And so Sydney spends I think 20 years that Oliver was in captivity, just trying to find him. And Oliver himself, he ended up getting himself out of captivity. And when he got into the real world, he was kind of shocked because his kidnapper had kind of fed him lies. The kidnapper told him that the real world was, I think, taken over by radiation. Everyone's gone. Everything's dead. Like, we can't leave. We can't go outside. So, like, as a child, when Oliver was kidnapped, I want to say he was like 7 or 8. He like believed it, and like growing up, and he was like locked in this basement. But the kidnapper wasn't like a malevolent kidnapper. He was really took care of Oliver. He never sexually abused Oliver, and he provided Oliver all the tools he needed to be like a functioning adult. He gave Oliver books, crayons, color pencils, whatever, so that he can stay educated while he's trapped in the basement. So Oliver gets out of the basement already like he you could tell that he's like a full grown man, like a person. He's not childlike really in any way. When he gets out of the basement, Sydney is obviously like shocked that Oliver is still alive, and the rest of the book is really them trying to reconnect, and they rekindle this love and this romance. Oliver kind of just has like this wonder about Sydney, and he's very like infatuated with her, and Oliver is very kind of like a cute, sweet, smart character, and he's not an asshole really in any way. Sydney, I think that she was really enamored by Oliver when they were young. So the rest of the book is kind of them like rekindling and finding that like love for each other, and also finding out the real reason why Oliver got kidnapped as a child, and kind of like a whodunit. But I really like this book. The spice level was great in this book. I think it was really, I don't want to say realistic, because some of the things that Oliver does is like, because he's not really like aware of the do's and don'ts of the real world. I really like this book. I think that this book had less dark romance elements to it. Really like explicitly like bad in this book in terms of like sexual abuse or like rape, because like Oliver's time in captivity was kind of like glossed over, but I just really like this one. I think I gave this one, I'm not sure if I gave this one 4 or 5 stars. I know that I gave Still Beating 5 stars, but I'd have to check. I'd have to put it on the screen. Last book that I read was Born Darkly by Trisha Wolfe, and this is another serial killer romance. And so, but this time our main character falls in love with the serial killer. So we have our main character, London. She's a psychologist, and she has a contract through the prison system where she works to take on mentally ill patients that have committed some serious crimes and kind of diagnose them and stand on trial when it's their time to talk about the diagnosis of these patients. A good reputation of being like a really good psychologist that has a lot of people like end up in bars, but not for like sentences where it's like, okay, you're now on death row. It's more like, so like you're getting locked up and being put into a mental institution. And so when she goes into office one day, like she has her own practice, she has her own employees, and the prison warden is like there, and he's like, I've got these 2 patients, like you agreed to take on patients per your contract. And she's like, well, I can only put one more person on my roster of patients because of the legality of being a psychologist. You can only have so many patients, whatever. So she decided to take on this patient called Grayson. The psychologist, her name is London, and so the patient that she takes on is Grayson, and he is a serial killer, kind of like Dexter, where he only kills people who's committed really awful crimes. And so they kind of, because the thing is with like London is that she's also like mentally ill, and Grayson he picks up on that. And so the entire time of this book is kind of like a slow descent into madness for London and Grayson. Like if you're familiar at all with Harley Quinn and the Joker, the Mad Love comic, it's kind of like that, where it's truly a slow descent into madness, and you kind of realize that London is like a fucked up person, and she does fucked up things to her patient. But the thing that this book, I didn't really like it because it's dual POV. So you get to hear all of London's thoughts, and then you get to hear all of Grayson's like really fucked up thoughts. And it wasn't even cute, like the way that him and London ends up like falling in love with each other, because the entire time he's trying to convince her that you're just as bad as me. Like, I'm a serial killer. You can be a serial killer. Like, release yourself. Be free. You're liberated. Do what you want to do. Because like she is like not a good therapist, I think, because the way that she treats her patients is like she doesn't really treat them as like human beings, even though they've done like really bad things. And so like Grayson's kind of like showing her proof of like, you've done this like bad thing to your patient, and they've all like off themselves. And London's like, she's just like, I'm denying it. I'm a good person. And then it also gives you a little bit of a background on London's childhood and things that she's done as a child and her upbringing. And that was like another exploration of like her character that like Grayson forces her to go through. And so the entire time that they're together is under this microscope of like the police watch, because Grayson is going to go on trial for like committing, I think, a couple more murders, and she's supposed to stand trial like in his defense. And eventually they go on the run with each other, and they do really fucked up things with each other. And it wasn't even cute the way that like Grayson was like, you're in love with me. He was just like the entire time was like, you're in love with me. We're meant to be together. And he actually like tortures her. There are several like very explicit scenes where like you could tell she's like, oh my god, I'm being tortured. He's gonna kill me. And so this book is not. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. It didn't really make me root for the main characters. I was just like, if more than anything, I was kind of like waiting for this book to be over. It was written really well. I will give it that. But other than it being written really well, it's not a good book. I didn't like it. I think I gave it 2 stars on Goodreads. And yeah. So I think, just to wrap everything up, I found out that I like dark romance. I feel like I need to call the police on myself. For Jennifer Hartman's book, the really like dark romance fucked up things happen in the beginning of it, and then the rest of the book is kind of like a good time, like any regular romance that you would read, but people are, you know, struggling with their abuse and kind of going through that. But the Trisha Wolfe one, I will say that one's very fucked up. You have to be able to stomach that, and I did not. And so, I don't know. I like Jennifer Hartman. I'm going to take a look at the other books that she's written and see if that's something that I would like. I wouldn't come out of this and say, be like, oh my god, dark romance, all dark romance books I'm going to read, because I really think it is the author and not the genre itself that I ended up liking. That's it. That's all I have for this review. Please comment, like, and subscribe if you like what you're doing here. And you can comment on my hair. Is it good? Is it ugly? Is it, I don't know. I'm still trying to get used to it. I figured out how to style it in a way. I used to have bangs before, for like all throughout high school and college. I had bangs, but I've forgotten how to kind of style this. Anyway, I also liked my haircut and this review. Just leave the scissors emoji in the comment section so I know that you made it to the end of this video. And that's it, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.